Private equity and succession planning industry is shifting. Essentially, small and medium-sized companies are finding it challenging to keep the business in the family. Joining us today are Christian Malik, founder and CEO of Novastone Capital Advisors, and Daniel Gertner, managing partner. Novastone is in the SME succession business and is constantly looking at new ways to put the right professionals at the helm of a family company just when it needs it most. Christian, Daniel, great to see you both. Thanks for joining us.
Thank you. Thank you.
First of all, Christian, why don't you talk us through where Novastone is at the moment, what you do, how you do it, and also perhaps a bit of why you do it.
Right. So Novastone Capital Advisors is our operator-led search fund program. Basically, it attracts mid-career professionals to search, find, and hopefully acquire and run family-owned businesses that are facing a succession issue. So basically, family-owned companies where probably children are not ready to take over, or they just don't have children interested in those businesses and need someone to take over those businesses. So basically, the program tries to address a problem, which is a big problem. So I don't know if you know or if you are aware of, but 150 million in between Europe, UK, US, and Canada, 150 million people is employed by SMEs. Half of those SMEs were created by the baby boomers. Baby boomers were born in the 40s and 50s, so today they are 60 to 80 years old, and they are or need to retire. And 70% of those businesses don't have a real succession plan in place. And that's trillions of dollars in market value. So it's a massive problem.
This is the time that this problem is at its most acute, isn't it? The age group, the demographic, and also the cultural significance of entrepreneurship has almost flowered at this particular time in the 21st century. Deeply, deeply felt beliefs in building a legacy, something that's close to someone's heart, all that plays into this story, doesn't it?
It is. I mean, if you think about, at the same time, baby boomers were the generation that was the most entrepreneurial ever. That's where, most of the businesses were created. So experience has shown that for them, when you are retiring as a business owner, it's difficult to sell that company to a private equity. They don't have someone to operate that business when they are going to acquire it. So they will probably ask the business owner to stay around for 5 years, 7 years, but they are in their 70s. They never worked for somebody else, so it's difficult. At the same time, for them, the most important thing is the legacy of that business. That's their life for themselves, the employees, family, friends, etc. So they face that issue. Do they want to sell it to their competitors? Probably not. They will just take clients and get rid of the rest. So what is the best option for them? That's how we came up with the program. To pass that business to somebody else, you need to create an environment that attracts those operators that are willing to take over those companies. And that's what NCA or Novastone Capital Advisors does with the operator-led search fund program.
Well, let's bring in Daniel here, because that's an interesting idea, the fit, finding the right person to do the job. Now, quite often these SMEs won't have a board, they won't have much of a structure. They'll be the province of an individual genius or otherwise. How do you find someone to step into those shoes and keep the employees happy that the company is remaining steady and the same?
That's actually a very good question. And as Christian already mentioned, on one end, we have those mid-career professionals that want to become entrepreneurs, that have that entrepreneurial desire. And on the other hand, you have the business owners who want to retire, but at the same time, they want to preserve the legacy. And that's exactly where we come in, where we partner with those entrepreneurs, or with those entrepreneurs to identify, acquire, and grow such an SME business and solve a succession issue. And we're doing this by we created an ecosystem around those people where we support them 360 degrees during the search and acquisition of such an enterprise. And how do we find those operators that we are looking for? We have a very tough selection process, actually, where we look for those operators. So we carefully select them. We onboard around 40 of those operators a year to the NCA program. And during this selection process, we're not only looking for their business skills and their industry experience, but also very much for their social and skills and their leadership experience, right? Because at the end of the day, they need to build up a relation with the seller, with the business owner. And the business owner needs to feel comfortable in a way in handing over his business, handing over the reins to them as an individual.
And do you find you have to hunt them down, or do they come to you?
Well, we do hunt them down, but we're very successful in our hunting efforts, right? We receive around 5,000 applications a year, and we onboard, again, we carefully select around 40 of those individuals.
Yeah, and I think selection process is very important. It's very important for everybody. It's very important for the participant to know that they have the capacity to run a business. So you don't want to just onboard anyone that is going to fail. Nobody has search in their life for a business, so we have to train them on that, but they need to know how to operate a business, right? So that is important, but at the same time, for that entrepreneur that needs to pass that business to the new entrepreneur, business operator, they also need to be comfortable that we're not just passing that business to anyone. It's actually someone that has gone through a very robust vetting process, selection process, for them to feel comfortable. That doesn't mean that at the end of the day, that operator will stay with the company whatever happens, right? There might be cases, hopefully very few, where you may have to replace. But for the program, the first thing is to keep the legacy of that business. That's the mandate.
This new person coming in quite probably doesn't have the same background as the original owner of the company. The original owner of the company started in his bedroom or in his garage or started small. The mid-level professional will have come from already a structured organization. So he's in a way a trainee entrepreneur. Is that fair?
That is fair, and that's a very good point. First, usually the entrepreneurs are very smart people, right? So they created something from nothing. In 100% of the cases where we have acquired companies from entrepreneurs, most of them have been succession issues, and 100% of the cases first-time founders, so first-generation founders. So very capable people. They just need to retire. Now, those companies, think about an example, and I know we might talk about examples later, but a typical company, let's say it's a 20 million revenue business making maybe 4 or 5 million in EBITDA. If you need to attract or hire someone to run that business, but you want to keep it in the family, it's not easy. It's not that attractive for a top-notch operator. It's not. It's small. You're going to give them a salary. He's going to just be an employee. It's just going to be one line in your CV. That's not interesting. What we do is we give that entrepreneur the possibility to earn up to 20% in the business based on targets. That attracts those very high levels. So you actually need to replace a very smart and very dedicated, very motivated entrepreneur with an operator that needs to be as good and as motivated to keep that company growing.
The first question the entrepreneur, the retiring entrepreneur, is going to ask you is, will he love the company as much as I do?
That's right. And I don't know if you want to add to it, but and that's what I always say, the first question is not how much are you willing to pay. The first question they will ask the operator program participant is, how are you going to run the business?
Exactly. That's this case.
And that's a very important aspect of it. So what we bring to the table here, or in front of those entrepreneurs trying to sell the business, are seasoned executives that have long-lasting experience in the industry of that specific company. Because what we really look for is that the company or the industry that the operator looks for resonates with his past experience, right? And that is very important. So if the entrepreneur starts talking, they are more or less on eye height, right? They talk about the same things. They had probably similar experiences, And now this operator wants to step into the shoes of an entrepreneur. And that's exactly where we come in, assisting them, because most of these people, they are not deal makers, they are not M&A experts, they are seasoned operators. But buying a company is a different animal. There's different things involved, valuations, negotiations with the sellers, the whole due diligence process. I mean, you name it, right? And that's exactly where we jump in, and we created this ecosystem of guiding the people through this acquisition process. And we don't only stop at acquisition, we also support them during the holding period and going forward.
Yeah, I was want to go back to take this back to the kind of structural side of the whole business again, which is you've got this issue of graduation, if you like. Where do you take this in the short term, the medium term, the long term? What's the structure that you put in place?
And maybe it's a good opportunity to just describe a little bit in more detail what we do, right? So it's, as I said, it's an operator-led search fund program. That means that you will have people joining the program. You have to go through a selection process, and they will spend up to 2 years searching with our support and getting also trained to identify that family-owned business that is facing succession, right? So there is a selection, there is you have to go an M&A process, an investment committee process, for them to then themselves be convinced about the business, also the program be convinced, and then, we invite external investors that then support that transaction to happen. And they will stay in the business for between 3 to 5 years. That's what we kind of estimate. We had already the first graduation, let's call it that way, of a CEO that has already exited the program. They will stay in the business, right? So their goal is to reach a stake of 20% in the company. For that, they have to reach certain goals, one of them being 35% IRR for investors, and among others. So they will vest their shares in the company. Then, when we feel that their transition happens successfully, that the CEO is good and he's able to grow the business, we will look for a new controlling shareholder to keep that company going with that program participant there very much embedded in the business.
Daniel, final thought?
Well, actually, Christian already mentioned a lot, right? What I probably want to reiterate a little more here is also from that operator perspective in a way, right? Because if you want to approach this by yourself, like acquiring such a company, some try it as well, and I can tell you from my own experience, I did it and it was tough. I didn't have the backing of an organization with that track record of 22 acquisitions and over 400 million of capital deployed already in both North America and Europe, and it's tough. I mean, we more or less have an even split between acquisitions that we did. We have a few more in Europe that we did, where the program also started out in Europe and North America. We see a little, I wouldn't say shift, but the American market picking up, North American, because we also serve the Canadian market. We had also the first 3 women this year acquiring companies successfully. So also that is an important part, right? And so I think there's a bright future ahead for this business model. As Christian pointed out, the succession issue is just huge everywhere, right, in the developed countries.
There's so much to talk about, but gentlemen, we are out of time. Thanks very much. Daniel, Christian, pleasure talking to you. Thanks for joining us.
Thank you very much.
So NCA is redefining succession planning, empowering mid-career professionals to lead SMEs while preserving business legacies. The importance of that role should not be underestimated. Providing support for thousands of crucial operations when they're at their most vulnerable will be key to the SME economies of the future.